Hi everyone, it's Marina from Jungle, and welcome to part two of these funny little stories that I've been asked to record. I don't know, to be honest, over years people have asked me about some of the funny stories that we pick up in management consulting. And these little short stories are always going to follow the same three steps. I'm going to tell you a real life story, or traffic accident story mainly, my thoughts and observations on it, why it matters and why it's even making it to this playlist, and then some ideas or thoughts that you might want to add to your own professional toolkit going forward to help you become a bit more street smart, and a bit quicker than it took me, although I probably started off pretty street smart as well. All of these are just observations, so go and research yourself, and they're more like story time. I'll also give you a caveat. They're politically incorrect, okay? So I have a natural bravery in me. I'm just going to speak honestly around what went on and, come get me, or whatever the phrase is. All right, so this story took place still in history, a little while ago, and but post-COVID. So it was a post-COVID in that sort of weird world we find ourselves now where nothing feels quite normal anymore. So we had post-COVID energy, and the scenario was I had been dealing with a large government entity, I don't know, for years, for about 10 years. And the previous team, who I'd developed long-term professional relationships with, and we had proudly delivered an amazing service to, they had just moved on, whether it was COVID or they'd got promoted or what have you, and I was introduced to a new contact. Now, what I'm going to say, I'll just warn you, right? Trigger warning. I'm not having a crack at females or nothing, right? I'm just telling you what happened. But the reason I'm going to spend a bit of time describing the person is because it matters, right? It actually matters in this story. So, enter the new contact. She was probably early 30s, so sort of, beginning to mid part of her career. And she entered the meeting with a flourish. It's the only way I can describe it. It was a Teams meeting, and she then took over the meeting, was talking. She had amped up her natural charisma, like she'd really used her charisma as a weapon, that sort of overly synthetic charm that people sometimes put on. And I was just watching her thinking, wow, if I was this person's peer, I'd be a little bit reticent of lots of things. Like, it was just a bit wild how she came in. It came across as, from an outsider's point of view, as quite domineering, very self-centered, and to be honest, the fact that she hadn't prepared for the meeting spoke volumes around where she sits in terms of being a high performer. So she was one of those people, who probably doesn't do much, talks a lot, uses charisma to manage up, and yeah. So anyway, who knows? I always give people the benefit of the doubt, but I've been sort of confirmed enough times to then probably start leaning towards that level of thinking straight away. But it wasn't just her style, which was so overbearing, and it just dampened everyone else in the meeting. It was also the content of what she spoke about I found really fascinating. So she disclosed that she'd been ill, and I'm not even going to dignify it, right? But she was talking about graphic parts of her being ill. She had a stomach virus. So I'll leave it to your imagination to talk about, to let your mind think about all of that stuff. Now, she thought it was funny or whatever, right? And I was just listening to her thinking, this woman's a clown. She hasn't done anything. She's turned up. She's good looking. She's charismatic. But she honestly thinks she's valuable in this meeting, and that everyone's, fascinated about hearing her bum jokes and all this type of stuff. For me, as a professional, as an outsider, I was just looking at her thinking, she does not read the room here. She's domineering. How many times have I said that? But her inappropriate disclosure was just off the charts. And I actually had to deal with her a little bit longer. She was one of these self-proclaimed people who said she had high EQ. And remember, I'm a management consultant, right? So I've got an exceptional poker face. And I was like, okay, yeah, amazing. And I keep thinking this first time I met her, thinking, wow, would have to be, I don't know, either completely tone deaf or she doesn't care. And over the course of our relationship, I discovered that she simply did not care. All her relationships were very transactional, and unless she was getting that feedback that she was amazing and this sort of weird persona that she presented at work was being confirmed by people, she would be okay. But if you start to threaten that, or that reality that she was just peddling out there, particularly to middle and upper management, she would turn on you, like, boom, straight away. So anyone who was perceptive or thoughtful or reflective, or heaven forbid, outshone the persona that she was creating, were, in her mind, transactionally, an enemy. Right, so that's the incident. It was wild. It was wild. It was wild watching this woman. But here comes the crunch, right? Because we were both females, she tried to enlist me and tried to, by going, well, you know how men are. I was like, dude, what is she doing? And this is my inner dialogue going on. Dude. And then she was talking about, you're not like other older people. Like, I've had men say to me, you're not like other women, like it's a compliment. Like, what the frig are these people on? Anyway, she went through ageism, racism, sexism, all of this stuff in reverse. But she had bundled it up with a neat ribbon on top and called it her emancipation and her assertiveness. And I was like, wow, who is going to tell this person they are so far off? And in actual fact, you're coming across as an incredibly untrustworthy, volatile human who, none of us want to deal with. So anyways, fast forward. No surprise, she started to, because she doesn't do anything, right? The behaviours are so predictable with these people too. And you should make a little checklist to this. So she started to miss meetings, not just the 5-10 minutes. She also then started to do the last minute cancellations, which then compromised everyone's capacity to get work done. Because the world revolved around her and this sort of childlike outlook she had developed professionally, wouldn't sign contracts, scopes weren't done, all the instruments we use to create safety and certainty, she just mocked. And I use that word. I actually use that word deliberately, mocked. Things like a procurement, process or a purchase order as details. Oh my God, I mock. You can tell she actually got under my skin a bit. So we found ourselves in this dreadful situation where we had this long-term client, really lucrative, beautiful relationship with them, had delivered value, and this one person sort of drifted into the middle of it and had completely broken all the levers that we had between the two. Now this is where the street smart came in. They will tell you, self-help gurus and all this other stuff will go on about saying, if you do a good job, people will see it. That is not true. That is not true. When you have someone like that, or a client contact comes in who is desperately managing up, she wanted to get promoted, so she was, she misunderstood that likability and her harvesting her charisma was somehow going to get it promoted. It probably would with some people, but anyone with half a brain would have gone, that thing, nah, no way. But she was promoting upwards. She was also discrediting downwards to elevate herself all the time. And for us, it was an incredible thing to witness, essentially almost 10 years of long-standing service and long-standing work, get chessboarded out because of one crazy person's, situation. For me, definitely professionally, sort of broke my heart a bit watching our long-term relationship get harmed by someone who was so incredibly professionally immature. I found her vulgar. I think that's the best way to describe it. But I also felt really sad that here was this person who was, she was just vulgar. She was just vulgar. Like some of the stuff, the swearing, the turning up, the inappropriate commentary around ageism, old people have no idea, sexism, men suck. It's all right, so what do? this one's hard. What's the next stage after all this? When you've clocked someone and you're like, uh-oh, this one here is a meteorite. This one's a comet. So my strategy, which was partially successful, was to wait it out. Sure enough, she left. They always do. Don't want to hang around too long till someone figures it out. But yeah, she ended up leaving, but not until a huge amount of damage had been done to probably not just our commercial relationship, lots of people's commercial relationships. Now, for them to get away with it is that they have to slag you off as they leave. So what I had been doing is, without judgment, but without any acceptance of her conduct, I've just been making sure all our quality metrics are up to date, boring, conservative, a little bit of networking, making sure our standards were really high. To be honest, I ended up carrying some of the administrative load that she was dismissive of with our own procurement team and what have you. And then, but also just being quietly and gently assertive, which, as you can probably imagine, was met with shrill hysteria when we wouldn't do work, because I wasn't even sure this woman would arrange to pay us. Like, she was ridiculous. So that's the only thing I can probably offer to you guys, is making sure that when you see one of these people, you come up with them and you clock it, and maybe things just feel off with this person and you can't quite put your finger on it, and maybe you're reluctant to say something because you don't feel like you should or whatever. Just do it privately, in your own honesty, in your own mind. Like, just check it and go, is this person really a clown? How do I feel about some of this stuff? And I'm not talking about being like overly sensitive and carrying on. I'm talking about breaches or like violations of normal behaviours. Like, I don't know about you guys. I've never sat in a professional meeting where someone is talking about, no joke, their bowel movements and that of their husbands, and they expect everyone to listen. Like, and she was doing it it was terrible. But if you do come up against someone who is just loves to violate or push boundaries, they're not being disruptive. Look at the nature of it. Is this a power play going on? Is this an erosion of what's acceptable? Is this person going to start messing around with your psychological safety because you've already started to agree to some of this bad behavioural stuff? And then if they are, call it early. Call it. You don't have to tell anyone. You don't have to point the finger or gossip, maybe your partner or friends or dog or whatever. But just believe in yourself on it and then act accordingly. It's once it gets to a HR complaint, it's too late, or any of that stuff. In our case, we didn't even have that option. So hopefully, my friends, this is helpful, and good luck out there. It is actually crazy.